Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Ethan and I are doing something a little bit different. We're not doing a tier list. We're not doing a combined review of everyone's favorite game, Arcs. We're not. We're actually doing kind of a general discussion. I used to do these videos called Interesting Topics, which is whenever I was gonna do like board game news, and then I realized I don't want to put that much effort into it. Like I don't want to be that guy who is like, because then you're nonstop involved in the industry, and I'm like,
Hmm.
nah. But I mentioned arcs not really as a dig, but both Ethan and I have done a review over the game with completely different takes on that, and it got me thinking the concept of rankings in general for reviewers. And even though I call my reviews discussions, it's a review at the end of the day. I was just trying to be cute with it, 10 years ago. Um, so there's no real structure to this. This could be freeform, but I am going to pose questions both to you, and Ethan and I are going to bounce back and forth on just overall discussion topics. But I am curious as to what everyone's views on certain things are, because was initially going to do this video by myself. Then I was like, this will be way more fun with
Hmm.
another person than just me, pretty much coming off like a rant. Um, so what do I personally mean by rankings? In this case, it is whenever a reviewer gives something on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5, stars, whatever it might be, they assign kind of a summary value to everything they said, and everyone's own personal rankings are different. Whenever I'm reviewing a game, especially with new people for the channel, I explain to them how I do it, and then I'm like, you can use mine as a guideline or do whatever you see fit. Um, so let's go ahead and get this started
Hmm.
with the probably the overall question: should rankings be included in a review video? Ethan, I'll let you
No,
kick that off. No, no,
I
I
didn't
actually,
know.
I actually
Yeah.
say yes, but I
Okay.
do agree with you. I'm not gonna sit
Hmm.
here and be like you're dumb.
Yeah.
I do understand why you would probably say no, but we'll let you go ahead and kick it off on why
Yeah.
you think it
So
should.
we were talking about this right before we started the video. On my channel I've only put out two like official review videos, right? Because I'm still kind of new. With the channel's only a couple years old, and I focus on a smaller amount of games. But here's what I've noticed. I've been around the review sphere for a long, long time. And it's with anything, books, movies, video games, board games, it doesn't matter. We all love reviews, okay? And I also think I get it. I get why people like rankings. I'll start there. I understand the I don't want to say urge, but like the inclination to like give something. We like to assign things value. So I get it, right? Like we like to be able to look at something and say this is better than this, and then assign number values to it. I understand why. Like it's easy to say, all right, this movie is a 7 out of 10, and this movie is a 6 out of 10, so this movie is better. And so I
Mhm.
get why people like that. Or this is an A minus, but this one's a B plus, so this movie is better. Um, the problem is as time goes on and as I like look at comments or even as I think about like reviews, the what I've noticed is that people don't really pay attention to the actual content of the review, and they give way more weight to in my opinion, arbitrary number value. Um,
Yes.
like the number value is like supposed to be just like kind of a summation of the actual content of the review, which is like, here's why I did or
Yes.
did not like something, and here's why, like I liked it or I didn't, and here's why, right? And so as a
Hmm.
summation, this game is a 6 out of 10, right? Like I understand, but people look at it and go, oh, 6 out of 10, and then they go like, well, why is this game a 6 out of 10 and this game isn't a 6 out of 10? And this game was a 5 out of 10. You said you like this game more. Like I don't understand. The numbers
Right.
don't match up, and it's like it's just weird because the problem is okay, sorry, I've kind of rambled, but here's the two main problems. People pay more attention to the numbers than the actual review. And secondly, everybody has a different idea about what the numbers or letters actually mean. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like everybody has a different way of thinking about the numbers. So like for me, when I'm thinking about like a scale out of 10, right, which is the most common one, in my opinion, everything starts at a 5. And it's
Right.
either, which is the average. Okay. This is a thing. It's been made. That's a 5 out of 10. Now, if there's like major detractions, we drop down below and now we're
Hmm.
below average. But if there's like positives, we get up and we go up and above average. So like that's how I think about it. But other people don't think about it. For other people, things start at like a 0. And if they like a couple things, they'll give it like a 2 out of 10. But if there are other things they don't like,
See, it's
it doesn't
interesting because,
matter.
man, I don't know anyone who does that. That would be wild to watch a board game review and then they're
Well,
like, "This is a 3."
it's not like that's
Um,
what they say. It's just like the way they talk about it. Like
yeah,
they just kind of go, "Well, I didn't really like this," so and then they'll just go, like a 2 out of 10, and
yeah,
you're like, okay, and they'll say things like, "This is what gets me." Oh man, like I could talk about this for hours. They'll say things like, it's not like they'll say things like it's passable, it's okay, it's not my kind of thing. I didn't personally like it. 2 out of 10, and you're like
right,
2 out of 10. Like 2 out of 10 is crazy low. Like
yeah.
for instance, one of the reasons I'm not mad at your ARCs review, even though I completely disagree with everything you said. Pretty
Oh, and
much.
for the
All right, let's
record,
get that
like,
out of the way.
well, no, no, no. I'm gonna bring up arcs just for a
Yeah.
sec because it's a prime example of why this video is being made.
Hmm.
We're not gonna debate everyone who's watching. We're not gonna debate arcs. You can go
No.
watch
Yeah.
Ethan's review. Spoiler, it's a positive one. You can go
Hmm.
watch mine. It's. I mean, people would say it's negative, but my friend Zach liked it.
Yeah, he liked it. Yeah.
So it's like, so it was. That's why I like my discussions because if it was
Hmm.
just me talking, then it would have came off way more negative, in my opinion. Anyway,
Yeah,
mine is wholly leans more negative
for
overall.
sure.
But anyway, but this is a
But
good example.
what I respect about your review is that you go, hey, this game isn't for me, and there are all these things I don't like about it, but you're able to look at it and go, but I can tell that this is like a well-designed game. It's definitely above average. Like you're not like, man, like you gave it a 6 out of 10, which I
Yes.
think is totally reasonable, right? Because
Right.
like even if like you really don't like arcs, you can't look at it and be like, this is just like a complete trash game. Like two out of
Yeah.
ten, like two out of
Cole,
ten.
yeah, Cole Worley just crapped this in a night. It's like that is
Yeah,
clearly not the case.
clearly
This is
not.
unplayable.
Yeah, it's not unplayable.
Yeah.
The production value is good. The rule books like is clear. Like
Yeah.
the
We
effort they
talked
go in into
about
helping you
how
learn, like it's all
streamlined
there.
it was.
And
Yeah.
it's streamlined. But two
And
out of ten, like what?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
come on, man. Like that's crazy. So
Yeah.
like that's why even though I pretty much disagree with your review, like I totally got what you were saying. You were like, "Hey, I don't like this. This isn't for me." But like the game is a 6 out of 10. Like it is above average. Like you can recognize that,
Right.
Like I picked up what you were
Yeah.
throwing
When
down,
I
even
was
though you're wrong.
younger, yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I probably am.
Yeah,
But well, I'm not because it's my own personal taste.
that's true. Yeah.
But when I was younger and doing the channel, that's how I looked at it. Like my scores were way lower when I was originally doing reviews. Like threes and
Hmm.
fours and twos were not uncommon. As I got older and, quit being like a toxic online keyboard warrior, I was like, and kind of matured more as a reviewer, I think. Um, it like the game has to have significant problems for it to dip below a 4.
Yeah. Like
But
significant problems.
yeah, like, and I also don't really review those. Like, I don't halt my rankings or my reviews of games, if I don't like a game. That completely detracts from my entire channel, you know, mantra. But at the same time, if I'm like only gonna, tear into a game and then it's like this isn't worth anyone's time. No one's even talking about this.
Hmm.
But I completely agree with you. At the end of the day, a ranking, and this is why I like them, a ranking is an arbitrary value. It actually means nothing except for really the reviewer to just kind of like to give numbers. And let's get this out of the way. Every reviewer has some form of narcissism.
Hmm.
Who else thinks, you know what, I really enjoyed this or I really didn't like this. I'm gonna sit down and record my own thoughts and opinions and publicize it for other people who don't I don't know can hear my thoughts. That's how great of a human I am.
Hmm.
Now, some people are more or less better than that, but that's really what a review is. Uh Now I like them because it should be a succinct value of kind of like you said, here's a 45-minute video. I think my ARC's review was 45 minutes,
Hmm.
something around there. I run long. I'm long-winded. My reviews, if they're 15 minutes, that's short. But um, if someone doesn't have the time to sit down and listen to or watch a 45-minute video, they could skip to the end and hear a view. And what a number does for me is it allows a person who doesn't have that time to know who they align with. If people are watching, a review with me, Zach, and Brett, which were the two people I did the ARCs review with, and they're like, you know what? I've watched them long enough. My own personal tastes align with Brett. And so what he gives this is going to hold more weight. Kind of like what people do whenever they listen to top tens of Z, Mike, and Tom.
Hmm.
It's like they know their gaming taste, so they usually don't really watch their reviews because it's like, well, I know typically what games they're each going to like. Um, so I don't like those same types of games. To me, a value does that exact same thing. Now, whenever you give a value to it and you just kind of leave it at that, that does no one any good because it doesn't mean anything. I think what I've done lately is whenever I give it a score, I kind of try to sum it up. Like,
Hmm.
okay, here's here, we did this 40-minute thing of talking about the pros and cons. And now here's my value on a scale of 1 to 10. With said game here, Nemesis is an 8 out of 10 because I like this, this, and this. But here's one major issue. Um, Now if people are just going to be a review and a ranking does no good if people are just gonna give no substance. I didn't like this. Well, why? I didn't like this. I didn't like this. I like even the opposite. I like this. Uh, why?
Hmm.
Like why do you like and that's what I tried to do very well in my ARCs review, which I hope came off somewhat coherent, was here's why I don't like this. Here's
Hmm.
how I'm feeling after multiple playthroughs of this game. Um, and I know you were asking about the campaign and stuff, and people have asked if I did the leaders and it's like I did the leaders. It was better. I
Hmm.
liked it better. Clearly, it was better because it has Teotihuacan powers. It's like that's cool. But the fundamental core aspect of that game is not something that I personally enjoyed. And that's what Zach kept saying. He's like, well, then you don't like trick taking. And I'm like, no, no, I do. I've played The Crew and I've played Fox and the Forest Duet. Oh, wait, both of those are co-op.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm like,
Hey, as an aside, we can all agree the crew is 10 out of 10, right? Like one of the best games ever.
I like Mission Deep Sea.
Yeah,
Um,
it's good.
I'm not giving it a 10, dude.
Yeah.
I've anyway. Um, but that's kind of what he kept saying. He's like, okay, well, I've played a lot of trick taking games. I like them. That's why he liked the game the best. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, I guess I don't like trick taking games. There
Yeah,
we go.
which is
That's
fair.
and and it was fun whenever I was doing that. And I'm like, why don't I like this? Because in War of the Ring, for example, you roll dice and those dictate your actions.
Hmm.
Some games you draw a hand of cards like arcs, and those dictate your actions. I'm like, why does it work in those games but not this one? And he's like, well, it's because the dice in War of the Ring, you're not affected by your opponent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that might be it. Anyway,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I do think a ranking is good. Um, but I also agree with you that if people are going in and just taking the face value, which I'm sure people did, they heard six, they
Yep.
heard me say a six and completely disregarded everything that I said. Hell, they even disregarded the seven.
Hmm.
And even Brett gave it a four, and he clearly stated he doesn't like games like this. He has
Yeah.
always been my lighter player.
Yeah.
Like, um, that it's like, okay, we know for a fact his score is that did not surprise me really.
Hmm.
Um, Zach's made sense. So it's like, okay, seven. And he even said I'd play it again. And him and I were talking after the review. And I'm like, well, there was no reality where this game was ever going to be extraordinary for
Hmm.
me. Hell, I think I said at the very beginning of my review of that game was I didn't even remember anything about it. You
Yeah.
kept asking
You
if I
you
was
backed it for
excited.
Cole. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, are you excited? I'm like, I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And I backed it for Cole. So to me, even though it sounded like everything I was saying sounds like a six was too high.
Hmm.
Um, in all reality, a lot of people would have given it a 4 or assumed I was going to give it a 4 or a 3 when I
Hmm.
felt like I was just shitting on it. But it's like, no, because I understand that there is design here, that it is a personal element
Yeah.
here. That I'm like, I know I'm not good at this game, but I don't like this enough to get good at it.
Yeah. Which I
Um,
think is fair. But then like people, but it see like what I took away from your review was like the things that you said. Like, here's my experience with it. Here's why I didn't like it. Right. And I went, oh, like I understand that. Like I see
you were frothing at
personally,
the mouth.
okay, look, there are some things I was frothing, but we don't have to get into that because that's not what this is about. Like there are things like obviously about the review that like I obviously disagree with, or I could tell was like like that's like a learning error or like a new I've because I've heard all new players have similar complaints. I had similar complaints when I started, so like I knew that, and like do I think y'all would like the game more if you played it more? Sure, yes, but your review made sense. Like I knew what you were saying. Hey, here are these elements of randomness at these points in the game that like make it subpar for me, right? I get that. But then other people be like, "What, a 6 out of 10? Why'd you give it a 6? Like you were crapping on it the whole time." And it's
Yeah,
like, it's like the number just throws everything off,
yeah.
Like
Well,
it
what's
just
also
it's a
weird
distraction for some reason.
is I think we've gotten into this point. This is going to segue into what the numbers mean.
Hmm.
Obviously, they mean different things for different people, but you have people in higher calibers than your channel and my channel,
Yeah.
and who actually make it their career.
Hmm.
Uh, to them, I feel like one, I do believe that once you get higher upwards your career, you're gonna be a lot more trepidatious about giving things a lower score
That's true.
because there's a financial aspect to it. If we give this
Hmm.
game a bad review, that's potential money loss.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think that at the same time, I feel like they start their middle ground where you and I would be at a 5 because that's
Yeah.
average, which means a 6 is slightly above average, which means that's
Yeah.
a pretty good score. 7 is good, 8
Yeah.
is great.
Dude.
9 is because it's like you start at 10. And 10, when people are like, "Oh, you give it a 10, that means it's
Mhm.
perfect." No.
No.
That is
Yeah.
not how I've ever that's this game is the best it could possibly be, or it has minor nitpicks, or
Yeah.
you're stretching. You're like,
Dude, don't even get me started. The way people talk about the numbers blows my mind. Like it, I see this a lot in like because I don't know if you use Letterboxd. It's it's like a place where you can review movies and rank them, right? And it's fun.
okay.
Like we like ranking movies, we like giving little joke reviews.
Hmm.
But the way people talk about numbers, like in their YouTube video reviews or on Letterboxd, it makes no sense to me. People will be like, "Yeah, this movie was um like like they'll think that sixes and sevens are bad, like are bad
Right.
scores. That
Right.
it grinds my gears when
Right.
somebody be like, "Yeah, this movie was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time," and they'll be like, "I give it a 7 out of 10," and then somebody goes, "Well, like seven, that's like a bad score. Like, why'd you give it a seven if you
Right.
like it so much?" And it's like, dude, seven is a great score. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking
That means
about?
this was good.
Yeah, in fact,
That means you would probably like if I gave I'm looking at your games. If I gave
yeah,
Frosthaven a 7, which I don't. I mean, it's a
yeah.
10 for me. But
Did I give
um
Frosthaven a seven? I don't even know. I love
no, no, no.
Frosthaven.
No, I'm just not you specifically.
Yeah.
Like if I gave Frosthaven a 7, that means it's good in my
Hmm.
opinion, and I would probably recommend it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
rave about it. I wouldn't be running and be like, "Oh my God, we got to play this game."
Hmm.
Um, like, funny enough, looking at all of your games, the ones I have talked about the most, and I think it does have I think actually I have Board Game Geek pulled up right now. If you
Yeah,
had
I've
to
got
take
it
a
pulled up.
quick peek at the games behind you, what game do you think I rave about the most?
I mean, probably Root, I guess, because we've talked
No,
about that a lot. Or Six Siege. I know you raved about Six Siege,
nope.
but I don't know
I do
actually.
talk about. I rave about Heat.
Heat.
I
Okay, yeah,
talk
yeah.
about Heat the
Heat's great.
most, and you know what's funny? It is a 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Root's a 10. Six Siege, I think is also a 9.
Hmm.
Um, but that's the thing. It's like I look back and I'm like, what did I even give that? Six Siege is an 8,
Yeah.
is what I have for it right now. Potential to bump up to a 9. Um, that game just inherently can't be a 10. I gotta give Mythic Games some shit, you
Yeah. Oh,
know?
that's fair. Yeah, yeah, I get
Um,
that.
but yeah, Root's actually a 9.5. It used to be a 10.
Hmm.
But out of all those games, I rave about Heat the most because to me it is one of the most fun games to play.
Oh
It's
yeah.
easier for and like I'm excited to tell people about it, and it's not a 10 out of 10 for me.
Hmm.
Um, but the numbers, yeah, so it's like 10 is damn near perfect, minor complaints. 9 is like, okay, a gripe.
Hmm.
Can't really but then 8, it's just like to me it's like the more negatives you have that cannot be overlooked or fundamental flaws obviously brings the score down.
Yeah,
But I think, sorry, real quick, because there was a reason I started that. I feel like some people's baseline is 7,
it is. No, that's what I'm
and
saying.
that is asinine to me. Again, I think that is to save their ass
Hmm.
so they don't upset anyone. Because even whenever they give a, they review a game like when they're doing like the crowd thing, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna give this game a 9, I'm gonna give it a 9.5, I'm coming at a little bit lower at an 8.5. Now hear me out. It's like, what do you mean
What are you talking
hear
about?
you
Eight is a
out?
high. Eight is a
That
high
is,
score. Eight, nine, and 10 are like the high levels. But
yeah.
like, dude, I've seen some comments in some reviews where people will be like, yeah, it was passable. It was okay. 8 out of 10. And I'm like,
You're right.
what? And then they'll be like, yeah, like this movie, there were like a couple things I didn't like about it, but it was like well made. I guess I could see, 4 out of 10. And you're like, dude, what? I don't
Right.
understand.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I'm saying is like, that's because the way people look at the numbers is different. Like my
Yeah.
baseline is 5, which makes sense to me because it's the middle.
Yeah.
I, I
Yeah.
mean, listen, I mean, mine is the correct way, obviously. But like
Right.
everybody, that's why I don't
Our
like,
our subjective
yeah,
rankings are clearly
are
the best.
clearly the best ones. Like whether you use stars or numbers or letters,
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter because people think about them differently,
Yeah.
right? Like my 6 out of 10 is probably different than what you mean when you say 6 out of 10. And here's the
Right.
other element. I don't know how you feel about this. I also kind of separate my rating sometimes for how I feel about it. So what I mean is that like on Letterboxd, my most common rating that I give something is 3 stars or 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. So like 3.5 stars, right?
Okay.
But here's the thing, like there's so many games or movies that I've given a 3 stars or 3.5 stars, 6 or 7 out of 10. But those are some of my favorite movies,
So
right?
you can do this on Board Game Geek?
Yeah, I
Yep.
do. Yeah.
Um,
What I mean is like, yeah, I've rated this a 7 out of 10, which isn't like the highest score. But here's the thing, like that's like legit one of my favorite movies, right? Like I can like
what
some
was it
people can't
again? What
separate
was the
it.
movie?
No, no example. I
Oh,
can give an
oh, okay.
example.
I thought you
Like,
had one.
yeah, like I'm trying to, like, I can give an example. Like, okay, so like for instance, the movie Tenet by Christopher Nolan, I rated that 7 out of 10. All right, like which I
Okay.
think is a pretty reasonable score.
I haven't seen it,
But
so.
yeah, I know you haven't seen it, but I like actually like really love that movie. But I separate myself. Like I could watch that movie anytime and have a good time. But also
Mm,
my rating reflects, yeah, like there are some problems with it that I don't like.
yeah.
It's there's too much exposition dialogue. Some of the sound design is a little off. Like, so it's a 3.5 stars, but like I still love that movie.
Yeah.
But people don't like that's not how people kind of view it. Like if they didn't like it, it's low. It's a 2 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you'll see that with I mean really all kinds of things. But like people be like, yeah, this is well made, but then they'll give it like a really low score. And for me, it's crazy. It's like you're giving something an insanely low score. Like for a movie is a great example because as if a movie's made, that's like an accomplishment to me. Like it's really, really, really hard to make a movie. So like if a movie is made, boom, like you're already at a 5 out of 10, you're there. Like that's a pretty big accomplishment. You have to make some really, really bad errors for something to be below a 5 at least, right? Like
Yeah.
really bad dialogue or like bad editing, like actual like mistakes.
Mm,
And people will take a movie that's clearly made very well. Like, okay, here's a great example. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It's a very
okay.
controversial movie. All right. I get why people hate the movie. Okay. Here's the thing. You cannot deny filmmaking wise, it's good. Like it's made well. All
Yeah.
right. Like
Funny
the
enough. So
but
yeah.
people rate it like 2 out of 10s because of like totally arbitrary reasons
Well, here's
because
the other thing
whatever.
is you follow the hotness, so the rankings are going to mean more.
Hmm.
And I've said this to you, and I've said this to other people in the comments. I mean, luckily, even though most, if almost all people disagree with my review on ARCs, they at least weren't assholes except for one guy. And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, okay, I'm just gonna get rid of you
Yeah.
because you have something else going on. Um, but it doesn't mean anything. It's not going to mean anything in a couple weeks from now, a month, because
Hmm.
it's not the hotness anymore. It's not what people are going to be playing. New games are going to come out. Cole's going to design something else. The new expansion for Root's going to come out, and that's
Hmm.
just how our minds work. So my 6 is going to be a lot more palpable. And I have actual examples of this. Well, one, you mentioned Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Yeah,
Mhm.
I thought that movie was trash, but I also am not a Star Wars fan. I've come to
Yeah.
realize that about myself. I rewatched it. This was a couple of years ago. I skipped that casino scene,
Hmm.
and I'm like, hmm, this isn't actually that bad.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's also, yeah, when you go in with certain expectations. But I
Hmm.
feel like when people give things a 7 in the board game industry, they I feel like they're viewing it on a school grading, an American school system, where
Yep.
a 7 would be a 70, which is a C, which is average. If I think about it like that, if I put on a teacher's cap, which I would never
Hmm.
do because they get treated like shit,
Hmm.
why would I ever do that? It makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think that that's where they're going. That's why they're doing that. No, I do think that they're like, no matter what they say, it's like if they give a negative review where they're giving things fives or fours, they have already checked the books.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, we can afford to not make money from them,
Hmm.
so we don't really care what we say. Uh, but yeah, so 7, and that's always been weird to me. Yeah, it's like, okay, which means a 6, which is why I think people took my 6 and
It's like
assumed
really
I,
bad.
yeah, and I'm like, no, yeah, I mean, if it was a D, it's like, yeah, that's below average, but 4 is below average for me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so my first question to anyone watching this, if they've made it this far, is what ranking system do you guys like better? Do you like the 5 being an average and going up or down as you see fit? Or do you like the 7 being the average? But to me, if you're doing 7 as the average, then nix the going up to 10, just do 5, up to 5. If you're doing that, if you're scared to go there, if a 5 is essentially, if a 7 is your middle ground, then a 5 is a 1.
Hmm. Which is so
Uh,
weird, right?
right.
Well, when people who do rankings like that, the other thing I don't understand is like when their baseline is 7, anytime they dip below 6, like the 5 to 1 range, I'm telling you, legitimately, it's totally arbitrary. Like
Yeah,
completely.
that is true.
Like when you get to that point, like what differentiates a 4 from a 2? There's like nothing. Like
Yeah.
they'll trash on it the exact same, but they'll be like, this one's like a 2, I guess. And you're like,
Yeah.
all right, why? And they're just kind of like, like vibes. And you're like,
Vibes.
yeah. And you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, like that's fine, but like it doesn't make sense. And then it gets into this weird part where like another thing that I don't like about number rankings is like then people to avoid that, they like develop these like really strict mathematical systems. And
Yes.
that is
Yeah.
also
Where
weird.
people's
Like,
rankings are 7.3496, and
yes,
it's like,
like,
okay, let's just round that up like basic
yeah.
math does.
Yeah, so like for instance, like I can't remember the channels off the top of my head, but there's some like movie review channels and book review channels where they'll be like, let me rank. I have 10 categories that I rank everything in, and boom, 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 boom. Here's like a number ranking for each one, and then I add it up and do like an aggregate average score, and so now we know this book is a 7.235.
Yeah.
That's weird. Like it's getting weird, like in that sense,
Yeah.
because something that's interesting that we don't talk about with games and movies and books is like we're not all reviewing them in a vacuum. Like each book and movie and game is actually trying to do a certain thing a certain type of way. And you can't review all things the same. And
Yes.
you can't even rank all things the same because you have to review something based on what it's trying to do, not like some totally like other thing that you've grafted onto it. So like for instance, if we want to talk about arcs, all right.
I don't want to anymore.
Don't want to anymore?
No,
Okay.
I'm
Well, I'll talk
kidding.
about something else. It doesn't like, okay, so we'll go back to Star Wars The Last Jedi, right? Like if you look at that, I think what people should be doing when they review The Last Jedi is being like, all right, what was Rian Johnson like trying to accomplish with this movie?
Mhm.
He was trying to subvert expectations a little bit. He was trying to do something new. He was trying to take a deeper look at Luke. He was trying to, flesh out the idea of war with, like the war profiteering angle, like all that stuff, right? And you have to be like, all right, like how well did he do that? Okay, like, in my opinion, I think the Luke stuff is very interesting in a very cool direction. The stuff with the casino is like a little childish. Like, I see what he was
Yeah.
going for, that there's moral grays and all that, but like, I think it was a little too simplistic and not quite as nuanced as he thought it was. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, that's kind of all right. But instead, people bring it on to like, they have their own expectations of like, well, all Star Wars movies should be this way. So we're reviewing The Last Jedi like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's
Well,
not, you shouldn't do that, right?
we're talking
Like,
about
and
Star Wars fans. We're talking about some of
yeah,
the
I
most
know. Maybe this is
childish
I shouldn't bring
based
in
out
Last
there.
Jedi because now you're
But
going to
you
get
do
Last
bring
Jedi
up
comments, and I shouldn't. Maybe I
right. I
shouldn't have
know,
opened that can of
God.
worms. I'm
People already
sorry.
hate me enough for the
I
next,
know. I
week.
know. No, people love you because you hate The Last Jedi, so you're good actually.
Well, I don't hate it. I just don't like Star
Yeah.
Wars, and well, they hate me now.
Yeah, now they'll hate you.
But you
Yeah.
do bring up a good point because I think a lot of people, especially because the board game industry, while growing,
Hmm.
is still very small. I can reach out to the designers of any given game. I can meet them. And that's one of the great things about the hobby. You go to conventions, I've met, high profile designers, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. But because of that, I think we put them on a pedestal and we
Hmm.
don't look at the board games in the same way. You're
Yeah.
like, well, let's look at The Last Jedi and what was Rian Johnson trying to do. Let's do this with Oath.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what was the designer of Oath trying to do? And people like to, and you do this with books as well,
Hmm.
like to assume that they had this grand plan. And
Yeah.
it's like, what if they just had a fucking idea
I mean,
and then
yeah.
threw a game together? And it's like, this was play tested meticulously, hundreds of
Hmm.
thousands of hours. What if it wasn't?
Yeah.
What if it was an idea put together? He had the resources to make a game, and he's like, "Oh, what if we just kind of
Yeah.
have
I
this
think
lifestyle game?"
the good thing about Cole Worley Games, though, is that he does have extensive design diaries, and you can legit go and read, all right, this is legit what he was trying to do with this game, and you
Yeah.
can review it. And I'm going to get more in the weeds, I think, on because I'm doing, two halves of my arcs review. I'm going to do the campaign, which is obviously what he
Hmm.
meant to create when he made it arcs. So
Yeah.
I like that's going to be a little bit more, I think, in depth of like, all right, this is what he was trying to accomplish narratively with arcs. All
Right.
right, how does the campaign do that? Like, and
Yeah.
you can go back because you can go back and you can read his design diaries. You can learn about the process of how they're making it. Be like, all right, cool. And I think that's why his games are more fun to review because like this is what he wanted.
Yeah.
All right, how did the final product stack up? Like that's
Hmm.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
and that and I feel like if you're going to design something, always do that
yeah.
because then it allows reviewers or fans to get into that headspace.
Hmm.
And I wasn't talking about like Cole specifically
Yeah, yeah, I know,
of
I
the
know. I was just
designer, but just in general of like, what if they just half-assed a game, but they
it's
had
true.
the money to make the game good or to make
Yeah.
the game look good, I should say.
Like I think a
Um,
good example of like why rankings are so weird is that like there are like elements of like, movies, books, games that like people don't like, but if they're executed well, can be really good, or if there's intent behind them. Like a good example is like in John Company, I find it interesting that you haven't played John Company, right? I'm
no, I
assuming.
want to though.
Okay, it is really cool. I'm actually interested if you like that game. We should play it sometime actually.
Well,
I'm interested to see your
I
thoughts,
like
but
what's that game about? It's about
the
colonization.
yeah, the East
Yeah,
India Company, yeah,
love it.
it's really cool.
Love it. It's my
So
favorite theme.
yeah, so here's the thing, like what I love is like people will like rank things based on like, assumed truths that we all know. For instance, dice are bad. That's like one of those things that like people like agree. We don't like dice. Like dice aren't good.
Yeah.
But the thing is like that's like it's like not true, right? Like it depends. Like for
Hmm.
instance, so many reviews I see will be like, yeah, this game is good, but it has like dice, which is like luck, so it tanks it. And it's like, okay, but
Yeah.
wait, but like how does that but how does the dice like
Well,
inform what the game is trying to do? So like in both Six
yeah.
Siege and John Company, right? Like those game both heavily feature dice. And
Hmm.
I've seen bad reviews of John Company and bad reviews of Six Siege. Where people are like, well, it's all random whether or not you kill someone, or it's all random whether or not this action in John Company like works. And it's like, okay, but wait, like actually, so like it's a bad game where this it's gonna get
Right.
negative points in the ranking. And it's like, well, wait a minute, like what are those dice trying to accomplish? So like
Yeah.
in John Company, the dice are there to simulate the fact that while we're chilling over here in England, we don't have control over what's going on in India. So
Hmm.
we roll dice, right? We're all gambling basically, which is like
Yeah.
that's what it's simulating that exact
it
feeling because
it
we're over
helps
here.
putting a thematic tie to it.
Yeah.
Like I used to hate deck builders
Hmm.
until in the rule book of Tyrants of the Underdark, it had a little sentence, throwaway sentence of explaining why a card doesn't come into your hand, it goes straight to your discard pile.
Yeah.
And being able to thematically put that into the game, I was like, oh, fixed. It's
Makes
fixed.
sense. Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
you said, we don't have no control what's going over there, so the dice are meant to simulate out of control. Six Siege, it's bullet spread. It's
Yeah.
bullet spray. I mean, because board games are static. It's like
Hmm.
you can't execute someone ducking and diving and jumping like it was Call of Duty or something. So it's
Yeah.
like the dice are meant to kind of represent that. I
But people
also,
don't reflect that in their rankings. They're just like, oh, it has dice -1 points, and you're like,
yeah,
whoa, wait a minute, like
because it's
why? Like
still,
why
yeah,
is the
it's
dice
still
-1?
difficult it's still not fun
Hmm.
like if you're rolling like shit, especially I think those things are exemplified in um competitive games. Because
Yeah.
if me and you are playing Undaunted, and this has happened many, many times in Undaunted, it's
Oh,
why I don't like it.
whoo! Yeah, that's fair.
It's like you didn't play better than me.
Yeah.
I just rolled bad the whole game.
Yeah, that's happened for
But
sure with me.
what you do bring a good point where it's like if people are tanking a ranking because of dice, but then they're praising Gloomhaven for the modifier deck, that's the exact
It's the
same
exact same.
thing.
Yeah.
But I think a deck get feels like you have more control. At least you have
Hmm.
mitigation. You modify that deck.
Yeah.
I personally don't like games that like roll the resolve. I
Yeah.
like it's like especially in strategy games, um, where it's like, okay, this is what it is. There's literally nothing I can do about it. Uh, Arcs combat
Hmm.
is like that is what it is. That makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
I do not like this. If there was more ways to mitigate, then and then you exhaust those ways.
Hmm.
This isn't specifically for arcs, but for just randomness in general,
Yeah.
then it doesn't affect me as much.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I also think that if you're going to review and rank a game, I'm kind of being hypocritical here because I didn't I didn't remember anything about arcs. Um, but if I'm going to go in knowing full well I don't like something,
Hmm.
and then I'm still going to play the game and knowing full well that I didn't like it, and surprise, surprise, I didn't like it, and then I still review it, and I'm like, well, I didn't like it, then give it a bad ranking. That's almost doing a disservice.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't review certain games anymore
Hmm.
because it's like, well, I know for a fact I'm not gonna like this. In Ark's case, I didn't know I didn't like. I thought I liked trick taking,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I guess they were all co-op, huh?
Hmm.
That's there you go. That explains that. So taking very specific aspects of games and I don't know, it is weird because it does still at the end of the day, you cannot be objective about a review.
Hmm.
Um,
Because reviews is subjective. I like this thing. I don't like this thing. Here's
right.
my subjective
If
reasons
you
why
agree with me, if
why I
you like
don't.
my channel, if you like my, my taste in games, if you watch my
Yeah.
top 100 and you like 90 of those games,
Hmm.
then you're gonna value what I say more. Um,
Yeah.
but I also have very specific examples of Um, and I do have two. Well, I do have one question for sure that I'm going to ask that I want people to answer and I want you to answer because I think I
Hmm.
have a different opinion. But uh, what was I saying? I was saying that I do think that. Well, I can't think of it. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Nice.
Um, damn, I totally forgot what it was. So I'll just move on.
Hmm. It'll come back in
Yeah,
like
it'll probably come back
an
and then it's not
hour.
going to make any sense
Yeah.
on what it was. Um, but I do think that if you are going to a review a game, that this could lead into the uh the question I'm going to ask. If you're going to give something a score at the end of a video, one that is your I do
You got
remember.
it.
I do have examples of games that I have played that I
Hmm.
gave a negative review. I have actually two examples. Um, that I didn't like the game. People shit all over me. Like
Hmm.
I told you this. There's always one game a year.
Yep.
This year it's going to be Arcs, which is not that bad.
Hmm.
Last year was Scarface, 1920, and the year before that was Ankh.
Yep.
My Ankh review, people
Hated.
hated. Uh, like man, you could, and then, but I mean, obviously, no one's talking about Ankh except
Hmm.
the two-player fans.
Yep.
Um, and people hated my review on Scarface, which, to be fair, the rule and the wording was bad, so we played a rule incorrectly,
Mm.
and people just took that and ran with it. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe Ankh is horrible at three players. I'll try it again. Scarface 1920. I try it again. My review didn't change. My tone changed because I it was both of those games were played after Like we
Hmm.
after we were doing our run through for the channel, then we did our review. So emotions are high when you're just done playing a game. So if you really don't like something, you're gonna be a little bit more peeved. Um, but I was like, you know what? It's been a bit. Let me replay them, see if anything's changed now that I know what I'm going into. It didn't. My
Hmm.
review stayed the exact same. But on the flip side of that coin, War Chest, I played, didn't really like it, gave it another shot, love it.
Yep. It's one of
So
your
my
favorites now, right?
yeah, like one of my favorite skirmish games. It is
Hmm.
so good. There's still the one of the major aspects that I mentioned in my original review. I still don't like it, but I manage it now.
Hmm.
So my question with those examples in mind is how many times do you think you need to play a game before you can accurately judge it?
I love the question because I mean that's what we've kind of been talking about with arcs, right?
Yep.
Like, um, I I personally, when it came to like, if we're just gonna
Generally,
keep,
because I
yeah,
think
I know
some.
generally, yeah, generally, um, if I'm gonna do like a video review, so like with Six Siege with arcs, I waited a long time. Like I waited with arcs, I specifically waited, well, one, I waited until the game shipped, but I was playing on TTS for like well over a year at this point.
Yeah.
So like I waited until I hit like I think the 30 game mark. Not that I said I have to play 30 games. It's just kind of like around game 30, I was like, okay, I think at this point I've played enough to be able to write a review. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have experienced I still haven't experienced everything from the game, but I've experienced enough, I think, to be like, all right, like these are my thoughts. Which is funny. Did you see? I sent you that comment where a guy commented on my
Yeah,
review and
you
was like, "Hey,
did.
this isn't a review because you weren't critical about it." And I was like, "Well, it was a review. It's just a positive review. Like what I said was true. Like
I hate that you're happy.
yeah, pretty much. This is kind of what I felt like." And he was like, and and he basically was like, "Yeah, I mean, like I've only played it like 3 or 4 times, but you're wrong." And I'm like, I
Yeah,
mean,
dude,
look, this is from like 30 plus games. This was
dude,
my experience with the game.
you
Like,
should
I
have
don't know.
commented and been like, "This isn't really a comment because you didn't give any
Yeah.
substance."
No, I mean, like, basically what he said was like, it's
That was
you're
weird,
incorrect
dude.
because I've had a different experience than what you had. And so it's actually objectively bad.
Yeah,
And it's like, it's just funny. Like, that's the other, you talked about how it's not objective. People don't understand that, right? Like,
yeah, no, they for some reason, like I think I mentioned it to you. I was very proud of my statement. Is like,
mhm,
people, especially in all industries, but
yeah,
um, confuse passion with
for,
toxicity,
yeah. But as far
or
as the general
toxicity with
question,
passion.
yeah, it's true. As far as the general question, like a good example is like John Company. I'd love to make a video review on John Company, but I gotta play it way more. Like I
Yeah.
gotta play. I've
So
played it more than I thought I would, but
let me
like I can
tweak.
tell
Let
you
me
that I enjoy it, but not
yeah.
enough to like sit down and be like, here's why I think this game is good because I
Let me
haven't explored it that
let
deeply.
me tweak the question because
Yeah,
I think I said, how many times do you
many
have to play a
times.
game before you review it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me tweak it. How many
Okay.
times do you have to play a game, or should a game be played before you will accept a review? And this is both for people watching, because I'm very curious because
Hmm.
my opinion is a little bit different. One, my personal game style with video games,
Hmm.
and mainly video games, is I don't necessarily like to finish things
Yeah.
because like I like still having them. That's why JRPGs and these massive campaign games I love because I like knowing I can go back to it. Once
Hmm.
I'm done, I'm just like, the empty void of finishing something you really liked. It's like, well, shit, now what do I do? So
Yeah.
I like having things, but I've also never been that type of person who wants to know the ins and outs because once you see everything, especially board games, why own it?
Yeah.
Why go back? It's like, well, I've seen everything. I've experienced everything. Now, that's not a monetary thing. That's not to say,
Hmm.
well, I got my money's worth. To me, I start looking at that as like, well, now I have nothing exciting to go back to.
Hmm.
Um,
I feel like that's
so
like an issue of like, you know, personal enjoyment. Like I enjoy having this, but also like if I want to sit down and make like an actual full review, like breakdown, here's why I think this is good. I mean, I do think you have to experience at least most of the thing. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Um, I find it weird when people review games, like if we're talking about board games, I think you got to go past initial learning games at least,
Yeah.
personally. Like, I don't like, and this is going to sound bad because it's going to sound like I'm talking about you, but I'm not. I don't like the kinds of reviews where people go, all right, guys, we just played this game for the first time and now we're going to review it. And it's like,
Right.
unless it's like a really, really simple game, like, I don't know, Santorini, right?
Yeah.
That's
Or
just,
or like or call it first impressions.
yeah, like if people call it first impressions, that's
Yeah.
fine. But also you'll notice that sometimes the first impressions people will be like, but I'm still going to give it a number rating.
Yeah.
You know, like when I look on BGG and people go, I'm giving this number rating off my first play. It may upgrade or not. And I just find that weird. It's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess if you just throw a rating on BGG, it's not a big deal. But when like people make
Yeah.
a video, call it first impressions, other people will comment on it. They're like, they still think of it as a review. Like you can tell in
Yeah.
the comments. They're like,
Yeah.
wow. Because people will be like, oh, a 6 out of 10. Well, I guess the game is bad. Even if this is what I mean by people look at the numbers and they completely disregard what people say. Because
Yeah.
even if somebody in a review says, hey guys, this is first impressions, the opinion will change. We can tell there's potential here for the game to grow, but we haven't experienced it yet. So right now it's at this number. People go, oh, 6 out of 10. I guess it's bad. And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, that's not what he said though. Like
Yeah.
that's
It's
not
like
what they're,
yeah.
yeah, he or she said actually the opposite, that it will probably, it has potential to go up or down,
Right.
but this is their
Exactly.
their learning game. And people
Yeah.
just look at the number. They like zero in
Hmm.
on it, and that's
Yeah.
all they see. And
And
that's
I
why
used
I
to
don't
do
like
that
them.
with so my campaign games because I want to get a review out like
Hmm.
at the it's like I still want to make a review. I cannot wait to finish a campaign. Like I
Yeah.
cannot finish Aeon Trespass Odyssey.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
gonna be 15 years before I finish the damn game before I could get a review if I did that. So what I
Hmm.
started doing was about 3 games in, three, four. Now we're gonna do a review.
Yeah. I think,
Here's like, and I don't call it first impressions. I'm like, this is
yeah.
our legitimate review, and then so you can hear our thoughts on the game so far. But it's
Yeah.
obviously a campaign game, so you know for a fact we're not done.
Yeah.
And then we
At
do
the end.
a second review.
Yeah.
Hey,
Later
we
on.
finished the campaign. Now there's two reasons that might happen. If we don't like the campaign and the campaign's not done and we get a second review, you're gonna know why. Hey,
Hmm.
this isn't really probably gonna be positive because we didn't finish the campaign. But if we are done, that's most likely a good sign. Because I don't like what showing my hand too early on reviews. I like the
Yeah.
suspense.
Hmm.
But it's
That's
like,
fair.
well, I know there's 30 missions in this campaign game, and he did a review. He only uploaded 15 of them, and here's the
Hmm.
second review. Well, we're probably gonna quit.
Yeah. I think that's fair. With campaign games, you know, that I don't think you have to finish like a full campaign to review it. Like I think that's cool and whatnot. But like
Yeah.
when if somebody says something like this, they'll say this in video games too. Oh, well, you have to get to the in game, the post game, like in game stuff to really experience the game, like in
Yeah.
a
Or
video game,
shows.
or yeah, our shows like you have to get to the 10th season for it to really pick up. And it's
It's like,
like with
no.
Gloomhaven, they're like, you haven't really played Gloomhaven until you hit scenario 80. And I'm like, if that's how the game works,
Yeah.
there's something wrong with the game. Like
Yeah.
you should be able after like 5 Gloomhaven scenarios to be like, yeah, like this is good. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep playing
I
this or not, you
with
know?
shows, I think episode one.
Yeah.
Episode one should tell you if you should keep watching, and that is applicable, in my opinion, to
Hmm.
board games.
Yeah.
Unless you have never played a certain type of game, then it's like, and you've never played games before. Like I've
Yeah.
played hundreds and hundreds of games.
Hmm.
Now I don't do one review or one game reviews anymore. Um, but it's like I've played enough games. I'm a gamer. I
Yeah.
think I'll know whether or not I will like or dislike a game at the very least.
Hmm.
Now, nuances of a game, or the only time that I think I ever want to retry a game is if I inherently get rules wrong.
Yeah, that's
Like if in
fair.
my ARCs review, because someone was talking about the court,
Hmm.
and people were like, well, you guys didn't really utilize them that much. It's like, well, in our games, they never were that like interesting to go after. And
Hmm.
I threw out the idea of like, oh, maybe if there was a house rule that they cycled at the end of a
Hmm.
chapter, the four that are there pull out, and you get four new ones.
Yeah.
So more of those interesting, unique things come out. And then that guy went on a tangent and freaked out. Oh yeah, why
Yeah.
don't you just house rule the fucking? It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think with at least with board games, if you're doing a full review, I do think you should get past the learning game, the episode one, if you will, right? Like
Yeah.
I was talking about it with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about how our mindset is we kind of just don't count a learning game as like the real play. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we all know the learning games can be a little slog. We're not really know we none of us know what's going on. And
Hmm.
even then, like game 2 and 3 is like, okay, like we kind of know the rules, but now we're getting into the strategy. Like we kind of specifically talked about Ahoy, right? Like okay, like first game's a learning game. All right, now games 2, 3, like we're kind of getting used to different factions, and I don't really feel like I had a good opinion on Ahoy till like games 5 or 6. I don't
Hmm.
think every game works like that though, right? Like I think so. It's not like I can say, oh, you should play a game 3 times and then you can review it. But like,
Right.
I feel like you should get past the point where you're learning and you can like definitively look and be like, it's not just that I know the rules. I understand the strategy
Hmm.
and I understand the mechanics on a level where I can say this mechanic is good and it works for this game because of this.
So
That's my opinion. There's
yeah.
no like golden rule of like this many games you should play. But
Well,
like,
it was that one was more of like like
yeah.
if I were to tell you I played Nemesis once and reviewed it,
Hmm.
but I loved it,
Yeah.
I think people digest that more. That's the
That's
hypocritical
that
part
is
that bugs me
interesting. Yeah.
because that's why when people we're talking about we're just I guess we're just keep bringing up arcs. I
Yeah.
gave it a 6 out of 10, slightly above average. Let me make that clear.
Hmm.
um,
It was a
and
good score.
it
You
is a
know.
good score. That is a good score, even though it is not my favorite game in the world.
Yeah.
If I come over to your place and you're like, hey man, you know what? We really want to do a review over the campaign of
Hmm.
arcs while you're here. Let's bust this out. I probably would. I'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, let's bust out the campaign and we'll do a review while I'm here in person. That
Hmm.
sounds fun to me. I might bitch the whole time,
Yeah.
or I might get, halfway through the campaign and I'm like, oh, I'm figuring it out.
Yeah.
I can do an updated review. But because I didn't like the game, people assumed, well, you didn't play it enough.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, well, I don't like the game. And someone made that comment, which it was kind of an asshole comment, but I still agreed with it. The
Yeah.
players didn't play up to the game's potential. Cole Worley's my dad.
Yeah.
It's like, but he's like, but they didn't like it, so it's okay that they didn't feel they don't have to keep playing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I agree with you, but I hate your wording. But I'm gonna keep it here because I still like it.
It's
But
just I
that's
think even positive or negative, I try not to look at the number and like listen to what they're saying because like there are
yeah.
some positive reviews where I'm like they're clearly like they're blinded by like the hype or something, right?
Hmm.
Or like they'll say something that's like, ah, okay, like you're gonna find out that's actually not that great when you get a couple more games in, like
No one says
uh
that though. No
I
one
know it says
ever.
that. Yeah. Like there are some, but like, and when you said that, like, you are right. But that being said, and I didn't get a bunch of comments like this. I did get one comment on my review, like I already said, where basically the guy was like, well, you were too positive. So this is a sales
Yeah.
pitch. It's not a review. That's what he
Yeah.
said. He said, this is not a review. It's a sales pitch. And that's like, he's like, not once. Here's what he said. He says, not once during this entire thing did I ever think you were talking about this game critically. It was a sales pitch, which is funny because like I purposely format my skit reviews as one character is critical and one person is explaining why or why not the critique is correct or not. So
Hmm.
like the arcs review is structured around one character in the review does not like Cold Worley games, and one character like does.
Yeah.
And as I'm explaining the game, the guy who's critical brings up all the points, like all the critiques that I see. Hey, it's too random. Hey,
Yeah.
like like this thematically doesn't make any sense, whatever. And then I spend the time with the other character saying, well, actually, here's why I think like that's not a problem, like why it works, right? So I feel like that is critical, but because it's positive, this guy's like, well, you're just pitching the game, you're not reviewing, which
Yeah.
weird. Like both sides, like it's and at the end of the day, this is what I told you. People want to find a review that they agree with already. They
Yep.
actually don't, and I think that's a problem as well. Like
Yeah.
people,
Surround
um,
yourself with yes men.
yeah, which is actually not how I think about it at all. I really like watching reviews for things I disagree with. I mean, I watched your whole review, even though there were points where I was just like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, um, one of my favorite channels, Shelf Side. I don't know if you watch them.
Mm-mm.
They do really good in-depth reviews. And I find myself probably 8 times out of 10, like completely disagreeing with them, whether it's positive or negative. But I
Yeah.
love watching their reviews, right? Like I like thinking about things differently,
Yeah.
like maybe being challenged. And it's like
Right.
people don't like that. They see a thumbnail that says 6 out of 10. They're like, oh, I give it a 6 out of 10. They'll watch that one and be like,
Yeah.
yes, good stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
And here's what's weird. It's all about tone and approach. And I feel like
yeah,
my arcs review came, I mean, I don't rewatch my videos, so maybe it came off heated. I know how my Ankh review came off when it came out,
Hmm.
and that if people thought Arcs was bad, ooh man,
Yeah, I haven't seen the Ankh
I don't have
review.
the original Ankh review anymore. But both Scarface and Ankh, when I did my re-reviews over and kept the same thing, I formatted it better, and they were with me because I didn't have the people that I gamed
Yeah.
with. Um, but then I got more people agreeing with me. Then I got more
Hmm.
people who still disagreed, or more people who were like, you know what, I disagree, but here's why I like it. Actual, respectable people. Um, so I think tone has a lot to do
Yeah,
with how people perceive your review and your overall number.
that's true.
Um,
I mean,
but
my
also,
tone is obviously very positive in both my
right,
Siege and my Arcs reviews. So like
right.
I
And
see
I
that.
also
Yeah.
think there's an element of, what's it called? Stockholm syndrome or sunk cost, where it's
Yep.
like people paid money that they probably shouldn't have paid, whatever it
Hmm.
might be, or they don't have a lot of games, whatever it might be. And this isn't meant to, and I really, really want to stress this. I'm not trying to be like, I have expendable income. I have
Yeah.
so many games. I just moved and that was my whole house. That was to fill up the moving truck with all my games.
Yeah.
But I think that that has an element of what to do with it, that if you like something, that's the positive twist on it. It's like, oh, well, you have to like this game because you
Hmm.
you could buy one game a year.
Yeah.
So is there authenticity in a only positive review? I actually say no.
Interesting.
I say an only positive review um does come off more as like you are trying to swindle someone out of
Hmm.
something.
I
Not
don't
saying
know.
you're,
Like,
because
I
again,
see what
it's
you're
not.
saying.
It goes the opposite. If I only shit on a game the entire time,
Hmm.
that does no one any good either. There
Yeah.
are positives to every game, and there are negatives to every game, no matter how much you
Hmm.
like it. Uh, like my favorite game of all time, well, not of all time anymore. My favorite game right now is Aeon Trespass Odyssey.
Hmm.
I can sit here and give you a top 10 negatives, problems with
Yeah.
that game, but they don't bother me. That game is still a
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
I mean,
Uh,
I think Oath is a masterpiece, but I don't like that you have to get people to play it at least 4 or 5 times to understand that, right? Like,
you don't have to
you know,
basically build a convoy of Oath players so you can actually get the game played.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and
Well, I think authenticity comes from like again, this is what the guy who said that my video wasn't a review. What I said was like a purpose of review, and I've said this multiple times in this video, is to say I like this thing or I don't like this thing. All right, here's why. Here's why, right?
mhm,
And I feel like I did do that in my video, right? If you could sum up my 30-minute video, it was basically, hey, this game is it solves like a bunch of problems I had with Root and Oath. It's easier to teach than Root and Oath, but it's just as
that is
strategically
true.
deep. It's just as
Yeah.
strategically deep as Root or Oath, in my opinion, right? Like that was my experience. I think, in my opinion, that's a very authentic review. That was my experience. I play
Yeah.
arcs and I'm impressed by like, wow, like this does so many things better than Root or Oath that I didn't even realize were problems with Root and Oath until I played arcs. I'm
Hmm.
like, wow, it like solves these issues. But like it's not because it's a simple game. Like obviously there's a reason I waited like 30 plus games to review because there was so much I felt to explore, right? There's
Yeah.
so much there, and I'm still, figuring it out. And I feel like that is an authentic review. Like I like arcs. Here's why I like it. It does these things that I like, and it's also very strategically deep, which I like. And then here are some like minor nitpicks, right? Like which I said, hey, sometimes the in your first couple games you're going to be really frustrated, right? The learning experience is a little steep. Hey,
Hmm.
sometimes the leaders in lore, one feels stronger than the other, like that's, I explained that. Here's why I think that's part of the game, but like people aren't gonna like this.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
like,
interesting because I think whenever you give examples like in this, it's one, it definitely can come off as it like not you specifically, but people who do this can come off as
mm,
elitist. It's the same
yeah,
people who, if you were like, do you play FromSoft games? Do you like Dark
no,
Souls?
too hard for me.
Um, yeah, right. But it's like if
Yeah,
people were bitching about those and all I said was get good,
yeah,
it's like, okay, asshole.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's like, okay, well, like instead of being like, well, why don't you like them? They're too hard. I don't want to die over and over. That
yeah. It's fair.
done. We're done. You don't like it. Move like that's okay.
Yeah.
But again, when people watch reviews that they vehemently disagree with instead of being like, well, didn't like
Yeah.
that.
It's
Or by the way,
another
I'm not gonna continue
it's
watching your channel.
I know.
Good.
I
I
love
don't
it when people like click on a review and then comment, I'm never gonna watch video. It's
I'm
like, all right, like I'm not okay. I think it's also
cool.
a weird trend. Tell me what you think about this since we're bringing it up. I've noticed this thing with reviews because especially with this comment, it illustrates the thing, right? Like my review was obviously mostly positive,
Hmm.
and and you're talking about if something can be authentic if it's all positive. Like I think it can, but I think something I've noticed about review culture, right? We're talking about games, video games, books, movies, doesn't matter, is that if people don't bring up critiques, like the review is discounted in some way, right? Like I've just seen people being like, okay, well, I have to bring up like critiques first before I can talk about why I think this thing is
Yeah,
great. And it's like sometimes you just love a thing, like all of
right.
it. Like I feel like that's fine. And your
So
review can be like, here's why I love this thing.
yeah.
Like totally.
So
Like,
my response is twofold a little bit to that. One, we've had a recent issue where with other YouTube reviewers who were
mhm.
busted for
Who are paid.
not embezzling, were busted for extortion. Uh,
Quackalope.
right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't gonna say their name,
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
but yeah, fuck that.
Oh,
Um,
real quick, before you say what you were saying, that's a great example of a channel that's very positive that I always like when I watch him went, ooh, that doesn't feel authentic. Like always I
well,
had weird
because
vibes, but
it
yes,
makes
now we know it
sense.
wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Even
that's
before.
why, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's why it only positive reviews can feel like that, where it's like you're only saying this because you're making money.
Yeah.
Now, people just assume that. I've had comments where it's like, well, of course you're going to say. I've had one weird one where it's like, well, of course you're going to love this game because you get all your games for free. I'm like,
Hmm.
that is the
Whoa.
weirdest
Yeah.
statement to just blatantly throw out there. It's like, and my response was, I could probably find this. It was, I wish, but I am absolutely not.
Yeah. That's like
I
when people were like,
wish
"Oh, you're just a Mythic game shill," when I was talking positively about Six Siege, and it's
exactly.
like, or like, "Oh, you're getting paid or whatever by them," and I'm like, "That's absolutely hilarious." That one, you think they have money to pay you because they
Yeah,
don't. You don't understand the situation they're in. But two, in
yes,
fact, I'm paying them.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
I
giving
bought
them
the
all my
game.
money.
Yeah,
Like, if anything, this should tell you that like my feelings for the game are actually like genuine, authentic. If I drop what was how
six,
much?
seven hundred.
Seven
Yeah,
hundred dollars, and I'm giving this game a 10 out of 10.
yeah.
Listen, like I'm not getting paid by them. Okay. The most I got, I did receive a review copy. All right. So that's
Yeah,
fair. You could consider that being paid, and that's fine. I
yeah.
guess I'd understand that. I
You
would
got
like to point out,
someone else's copy when they paid
yeah,
the extra money.
I actually didn't even receive my original copy.
Oh,
So
never mind.
really, yeah. So actually, the review copy I have is the only copy I have. I didn't even
Yeah,
get the copy I pledged for. So no, I gave them money.
yeah.
All right, and it's not a sunk cost thing because I've been
Mm-hmm.
playing the game for 2 3 years now.
Right.
So we're well past that point.
Yeah.
I'm like 70 games, maybe more logged on Board Game Geek into
Mm-hmm.
that game. Like that should tell you no, if anything, this is more authentic, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't receive anything. My channel is not even 1,000 subscribers. How am I getting in what world am I getting paid
I know.
for these
Yeah.
videos? Like, what are
And
you
it's like,
on?
yeah, I think I'm at like 3,400 and I'm like, yay. Every time I get one subscriber when I go to check, like if I upload a video today, I'm like,
Yeah.
yay. But the second answer to your question is I have also started by mentioning cons. It's like, let's start with the cons of a game. Or I try
Yeah.
to. It's some I like again, my reviews are not structured. It's like, but anyone have any negatives? Let's
Mhm.
get those out of the way because then we can move past them and talk about positives. And on a positive note,
Yeah.
before we give our score. Um, so, but again, I think whenever you're reviewing a game and it's only like shut up and sit down, um, I don't really like their reviews anymore because I'm waiting for the bait or I'm waiting for the switch.
Yeah.
It's like okay, they're talking about it. When's the
But it
when?
actually sucks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like with their weird cadence on how they all talk now. It's like, yeah, I'm just like, okay, where is it? And there it is. Here's your true
Yeah.
feelings, you know?
Hmm.
I think what people want out of reviews and why they like rankings is because they want it to feel authentic. They want to watch a YouTuber, you or me, and feel like a personal um connection where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
this is a buddy, especially
Hmm.
if they've watched you for a long time. Um, And it's like here's what I consider a friend, my parasocial relationship that's completely unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be lied to
Yeah.
anymore. I get that enough in politics or religion or whatever it might be. I don't want it in my entertainment.
Yeah.
So if I mean, because that's why I think negative reviews are helpful. I explained to you
Hmm.
as a reviewer, which I guess I am, a positive review is just as good as a negative one. If I'm convincing you to go out and spend money on the game, it is within my duty to also convince you to save your money
Yeah.
if you agree with me. Right, wrong, or indifferent, if you like my opinion on games, you like my personality, whatever, then it's like, okay, hey, here's a game. Like if you were eyeing Arcs and I mentioned it's trick taking, and here's why I think the trick taking isn't fun for me. And I kept trying to say for me, and someone's like, you know what? I that would also bug me. I think I'll
Yeah.
save the $150 or whatever it was. Yeah, I think it was 150. Um, great. Especially now where it's like most people aren't buying games. That's like, okay, save the 150 for another Kickstarter. Wait for another review that I do. That's like, oh, yeah, no, that one does sound a lot of fun. Oh, how much is it? 100. What ranking did he give this? Oh, he gave this one an 8, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so that's ultimately, and the other thing is like we were talking about like the number value. Those numbers are not all created equal.
Yeah.
Like a 10 for Sky Team is not the same value as a 10 for Aeon Trespass Odyssey.
Hmm.
Now, which one would I rather play, not given any time constraints or anything like that? Aeon Trespass, 100%. So you
Hmm.
can't take a 10 and apply it to another 10. You also can't take, yeah, or you can't take like just genres of games. You can't just compare them and be like, well, he gives Scythe a 10, but he gives Heat a 9, but Heat is higher up on his top 100. It's
Yeah.
like how boring of a top 100 would that be if I started at one? It's like they're all over the place.
Yeah, the
Um,
numbers aren't created equal, and also like each number can mean different things because like we're not reviewing in a vacuum. Like we're reviewing a thing
mhm,
based on what it's trying to do and like
yeah,
within its context. And so like, like on Letterboxd, I give 3 stars out the most to movies, but like that means totally different things.
yeah,
Like my 3 stars for the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is more negative than like my 3 stars for Jordan Peele's Nope, which I actually really enjoyed. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it, but that's why you need the review to explain the number value. But people
hmm,
ignore the review, they look at the number value. And because we all think of number values differently, like we've already talked about,
yeah,
that's how you get these weird like fights over scores, even though we're maybe not disagreeing that much. Like your review of Arcs, like your score was a good score, right?
yeah,
But it was explained, like your 6 out of 10 is explained if you listen to what you said about the game. Hey, like all of y'all, what I love, all of y'all said, hey, we recognize there's some really good design elements in this game, but we don't like them.
yeah.
So it's a
Well,
lower
two
score, but
two of
it's
us, two of us
yeah,
said,
two of
yeah,
us, exactly, 2 of us. So, but it's not a bad game. 6 out of 10. That's
yeah,
all right. I understand what the 6 out of 10 means for you when I listen to that, but people
yeah.
don't listen to that. What they heard was this isn't for me, 6 out of 10, and they went whoa and started
Yeah.
in
Well, you must
comments.
be actually, if you were an elitist, I watch Rick and Morty, so
Yeah,
you would
that's
actually
why.
understand how this game actually works. It's like, dude, okay.
Yeah,
It's like even then, I did not play the game. Full disclosure, 30 times.
yeah,
I am an adult who has a
hmm
career and other
yeah.
games to play.
There's so many other
Um,
games to play. Yeah,
yeah, and so it's like, and that's the thing. It's like that's why I like my discussions is
hmm
like, okay, ignore me.
yeah.
Listen to Zach. He
Yeah, he
liked the
liked
game.
it. Yeah. He liked trick
Um,
takers. He talked about how what the experience is like if you're good at trick taking games,
yeah, he
like
talked
that's
about
what it's
his
like.
strategy, why it worked for him, why the hand management didn't bug him because he understood how to use it.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like, great,
Yeah.
perfect. Listen to him. But even then, the out of my group and our plays, the one who liked it the most still agreed with us in certain moments. Whenever
Yeah.
he like, I think we made a statement of like it is like the hand can be too constrained when you need cards at very critical moments and you don't have them. And
Yeah.
unlike other war games or strategy games where you do have that control, and he was like, exactly. Yes,
Hmm.
that can happen where it's like I would like to do this, I physically can't,
Yeah.
and that bugs me. Um, but also when you're given things a score, like you kind of compare them to their, like I said, their own genre, where it gets difficult whenever you just like games. That's why like hidden movement games are a great example. I've yet to
Mhm.
find a modern day hidden movement game that I like when I like three others.
Yeah.
It's like, not for me.
Yeah.
And so it's hard whenever you also rank those games because it's like, well, it's hidden movement.
Hmm.
Not bad, but it's not as good as
As this other game.
Whitechapel or Fury of Dracula or whatever it might be. It's like shit, because sometimes I find games hard to rank.
Yeah.
Where it's like, ugh, what do I give this when I technically don't have like it's hard whenever you technically don't have any negatives, but you just didn't really vibe with it.
Yeah.
Like what do I give this? It's not a five
Hmm.
because it's like I don't have any negatives, but like there are games like Men at Work, for example, it's a dexterity game. We gave it nines and tens because it's a fucking blast to play.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we don't really have any negatives, and for dexterity games, this one's a blast, nine or
Yeah.
10.
That's why I like reviews that like just don't have the numbers.
Yeah.
Because you get in this scenario where you're like, well, what number should I give it, right? Whereas
Hmm.
instead, like it's easy to go like, do we like this dexterity game? Yeah. Why do we like this dexterity game? Here it is. And not have to worry about being like, all right, but what number do we assign it, right? It's like,
Hmm.
hey, like if you're in that scenario where a game where you're like, yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but I didn't vibe with it. When you tell me that, like those words, I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know
Yeah.
whether or not I would like this game. I don't need the number 5 or 6,
Right.
right?
So let's say,
Because the number 5 or 6 means something else. But when you say, yeah, it's like a good game, but we didn't really vibe with it. I'm like, cool. I know what you think about that game. Like
yeah.
that is a good review to me. You were talking about Shut Up and Sit Down. And like I get, we kind of know like their pattern, or whatever, but something about the Shut Up and Sit Down reviews, I know what they think about a game by the end of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I like that they just go, hey, we recommend you buy this game or you
Hmm.
don't. And I like even with their like second act twist or whatever,
Hmm.
where they're talking positively and then they'll talk negatively, whether they say what they think at the beginning or the end doesn't matter. Like by the end of a Shut Up and Sit Down review or a No Pun Included review or a Shelf Side review, I'm like, I know if they like the game or not, and I know why, right? Like
Yeah.
they explain that, and I don't need the 7 out of 10s. I don't need the 8 out of 10s. Like I could tell you, wow, Tom Brewster liked Oath because the narrative elements are very strong and the design supports the
Hmm.
narrative elements, but it has some issues with player count and teaching is really, really hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, like is teaching a problem enough for me? Right, where I don't think I'll be interested. No,
Hmm.
is narrative a cool thing? That sounds
Or
cool to me. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
I think I should try Oath. You
I
know what I
had
mean?
someone because now I'm in that time, and this is why just negative. I like doing them one because I mean at the end of the day, it's also fun to just bitch about stuff
That's
to
true.
complain. At the end of the year, I always do a top five worst games. I have way more fun doing that than my top 10 of the year.
Yeah.
Um, but someone commented, and it was actually on my Nucleum solo discussion, and he was asking me which one I should get. He's like, should I get Anachrony or Nucleum for? And I'm like, oh man, yeah, no, that's a good question. And then he asked, okay, what about setup and teardown? I'm like, oh, there we go. Here, yeah, the Nucleum's way easier to set up and tear down, so that'll help you make a decision. Um, but my other final question for anyone to comment is, do you prefer reviews that actually give an arbitrary number at the end, um, to as a summation of everything that was said, or do you not like them?
Mhm.
Um, and what do the numbers mean to you? Because I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what is gonna matter. Because I mean, I've done this before. If I like for a Dice Tower review, if it's over a game that I have personally reviewed and I didn't like it, I'll skip straight to the end to see what they thought. And if the
Yep.
number's higher, if I know which it's gonna be, like if I
Hmm.
gave a game a six, they're not ever gonna do that. I am more inclined to watch their review if their number matches
Hmm.
or if their number is lower. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
that's gonna be interesting.
Hmm.
I don't want to watch a review of someone who like is gleeking over something, which I guess their reviews are always nines or eights, nines or higher. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, what does that even mean? I do think the number means less as you get further down. There is no difference really between a two and a three, two and a one,
Hmm.
really. except a 1 is like you can't play this. Like this is unplayable. But it's it's fascinating stuff.
One's
Um,
there's no listen. I guess as like a final thing, like I think if people really want to give like number of reviews to everything, they should really experience more things. I think that's the biggest thing is like when people call something a one, like a movie a 1 out of 10, all right, as a good example.
yeah.
I just want them to be, I just want to look at the, like pull them in a room and be like, you have not watched enough movies. I can show
Right.
you some 1 out of 10 movies. Go watch The Room and tell me that Star Wars The Last Jedi is a 1 out of 10. Like
Right.
you're absolutely insane. Like go watch some of these crazy like made for DVD movies that are made for like $5
Yeah.
that were like made in somebody's garage on a stinking soup can as for
Yep.
a camera. And tell me, that stinking The Rise of Skywalker is the worst movie you've ever seen. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like you just gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta read more, you
And it
gotta
goes,
watch
yeah,
more, you
it
gotta
goes the
play
exact
more.
same way. That's why if I'm talking about a game and I'm comparing it to others, I will look up, like I did that for Arcs. I was like,
Mhm.
if I'm comparing this to Oath, what did I give Oath?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying it's like I'm sitting there in the review being like, I like this better than Oath.
Hmm.
Let me back that up. I
Yeah.
gave Oath a 5. Okay, how much more do I like Arcs more than Oath?
A little
One
bit.
score, one a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, so there you go. It's just like if you are able to at least back up your statement versus like, but here's the thing, you were talking about kind of like you want to know what people's thoughts are. But sometimes like if you just don't vibe with the game, that's not, I mean, what if the entire time on Arcs, like I was just like, it didn't really click.
Well, but you can be like, I feel like you were pretty clear on like what you were talking about in this video. I just realized that competitive trick taking is not for me, and I can see
Yeah.
why this is a good design, but like, you know, I like cooperative trick taking more. And so somebody
Yeah.
else can be like, "Oh, hey, like I like competitive trick taking. Okay, I probably would enjoy this more than
Yeah.
you." Or, "Oh, yeah, think I feel the same. Cool. Like I'll pass." Like that to me, like I get what you're saying when you explain
Hmm.
like why you didn't vibe with
Yeah.
arcs. That explains more to me than the number.
Yeah.
Truly, like you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like that's why I think they're not necessary. Um, and also, I mean, we've talked about it a million times. Like the numbers, they do distract people. They're like the
Yeah.
priority for most people, and they are ignoring like the actual stuff that we're saying,
Yeah.
which is the review. Like that's the review, not the number.
Right. Right.
So
And also, I'm always curious at how did people actually watch the whole video?
no,
Yeah, it's like
no, they
no,
don't.
no.
That's why I don't
Most,
include a number. Like if you want to know what I think about the game,
yeah, yeah.
you got to
I
watch
do,
the
and I've
video.
done that. Like people are like, put timestamps in your videos. I'm like, no, because or put timestamps on your top tens. No, because
Yeah.
then you won't watch the video. I mean, you could always
Hmm.
skip through. There's nothing I can do to stop you, but you're gonna
you can
manually do
you
it.
can always tell from a lot of comments if they watch the whole video or not. It's
Yeah,
always funny.
which no
Like
one did. No one
yeah,
watched my entire Arcs review because everyone was attacking me, which I guess I mean it's my channel, but
yeah,
it's like, did none of you listen to the other guy? The other
yeah.
like they like he's saying exactly what you're saying. It's like I'm not just sitting here like I actually kind of walked in, read half the rules, and played. That was
Hmm.
it. I hated this game. This game fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like Cole's the worst designer I've ever seen.
I
It's like
think
that's how people like took my review.
I guess. I mean, look, like I pretty much disagree with everything you said in the review,
Yeah.
right?
But you
And I
also
do
hate the lizard cult and Root, and
exactly,
you're just not
exactly.
good enough to play them. That's
That is
really
true.
what it is.
Listen, I did say that in our video. I haven't figured out the lizard cult, and that's
That's true.
fine. So, like, I haven't popped off a video saying the lizard cult is bad. That I think, like, that's like,
Well, you put them in
but
F tier.
that's true. I did put him in F
Yeah.
tier.
So I
Yeah,
mean, I don't
I
know
had
what
to
you're
be
talking
for
about.
consistency's sake. That's
Put the
true. That's
fucking
fair. I
river,
did. I did.
the river, the beavers
Um,
at S.
but like, I do disagree with your review. I mean, totally. Like, and there were many things. There are some comments that I'm like that I of the video that I do agree with. Like, but like I still understand why you didn't like it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I get it. I do wish you had tried the campaign because I mean that was obviously the intention of the game originally. I don't know if you'd feel
Then
differently
make it a
about it. That's
campaign
what that's what I was
because
interesting. That's what I found I was really interested to see after your lukewarm reception to the base game. I was very interested to see what you would think of the campaign. But like it's okay. Like if you like
dude, I mean, then I'll play the campaign.
yeah.
Like
Like even if
I'm
you hate it, I just was just interested. I'm like, oh, like what will he think about the campaign? You
yeah.
know? So,
But
but
that's my argument with for that would be if that was the intention, then don't bite off more you can chew. Make it a campaign game.
yeah, I mean,
Like it's the same people who are like, this game is semi-cooperative, fully cooperative, competitive,
yeah,
1v1, team versus team. It's like all those are gonna suck.
yeah, yeah.
Like
The Witcher
so
Old World, they do that. They're like, hey, we have this game, and then they grafted like every mode under the sun, and I don't play
yeah, it's
80% of
like
them, and then I'm mad that I got
exactly.
them. I'm like,
It's
why
like
did I do that?
yeah, it's like
To be
quality over
fair,
quantity.
I mean, we don't have the time to talk about it. So it's not part of it's not the point of the video. With Arcs, it was just gonna be a campaign game, and the base game kind of just like happened. Like they realized,
Ah,
hey, we like playing a single session, and so it was kind of like a thing where they're like, if we like playing a single session so much, we could just make this a base game and then have the campaign. So to be fair, it wasn't that they, it was a campaign game, and the
got it.
base game kind of
Got it.
kind of
Well,
happened as developed. But
then
that's not the point.
we'll play the campaign and then we'll do a review over the campaign
Yeah.
and I'll give it it's like a 3.
Um.
It's like a
Yeah.
worse score.
A worst
Real
card, that'd be
quick,
really funny.
that
Yeah.
would be so funny. Real quick, before we get off of here,
Mhm.
is your board game geek up to date on your scores?
Kind of. I haven't been using it until very recently. So that's the
Gotcha.
thing is like
So just for shits,
still
go
getting
to
used
your
to it.
profile and scroll down.
Yeah. Real quick. Okay.
And what is your highest uh rating,
In my
highest average
collection.
rating out of your collection?
Well, I haven't rated that. I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it and it's all sevens to tens because the ones I've rated are the ones I enjoy. The
Hmm.
lowest one is Wingspan at 6.
Okay.
Um,
So
see.
my average,
Yeah. I think my average would probably be 8
yeah,
looking
that's
at it.
exactly where mine is. I mean, it's a bell curve. So it's like my
Yeah.
out of 358 games, 30% I have rated as eights. I have 57 games at 10, 188 at 9, 257 at 7, and then it just goes down. I have 2 games at a 2. So and so it's like generally my reviews and the games I play are positive.
Mhm.
Um, but
I'm
yeah.
actually very easy to please. That's actually something that you should know about me, especially with
Well,
movies
I
and
know
shows and books. I'm pretty.
I was the guy who commented on your ARCs review. That was me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
have
were
a
the one. Yeah, it's not a review.
I have a throwaway account.
Yeah. I knew it.
I
It's
was
okay. I
trying to.
think.
I'm so in my own Discord.
Yeah, I think as a conclusion, we can all agree that Seth is wrong about arcs. We're right about arcs. It's a good
Yes.
game. He's
Yep.
wrong. Attack him on his channel.
Yeah.
Tell him how wrong his ratings are.
Yes.
Tell him it's a 10 out of 10.
Go
I
after
didn't even
me.
give technically the number I gave arcs on BGG is not 10 out of 10. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I don't know if that's important. But like
Well, that
again,
basically
like
means you hate it.
that means I hate it. Yeah, it's a pretty low. It's
Yeah.
passable. 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
Um.
how I felt about it.
Yeah. And then yeah, attack Ethan because he sucks ass at root
That's
and
totally fair. Yeah.
which is a superior Cold Whirly game, and that's why he's even has a name for himself. Um,
Well, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. That's a
so
whole other video. I've wanted to make an Arcs versus Oath versus Root video for a while. Maybe we'll do that. I
why
don't
waste
know.
the time? No one's gonna. That's definitely not gonna get you any favorable comments.
Yeah, we'll just
Um,
annoy everybody. Why don't we?
yeah, but yeah, the 3 questions that I had that I'm very interested is which I've is do the numbers matter to you?
Mhm.
How many games, how many gameplays generally would you like before someone gives a review or a ranking? And I can't remember the first question. It was at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't remember
Um,
either.
but yeah, this was just a ramble really on the ranking system and really reviews in general. Uh, but I hope this was fun and entertaining and insightful discussion. Um, keep it civil in the
Mhm.
comments. I don't think there's really anything that are going to get people riled up, but I mean, it's the internet, so people will find
Yeah,
something they probably will. You have Guardians of the Galaxy back there, Volume 2 specifically.
it's the
Yeah,
best
man,
Marvel movie. Sorry, it's
not even
masterpiece.
close,
Guardians
dude.
2 is masterpiece. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
How's your
Guardians
relationship with your
2.
dad, dude?
Guardians 2 is 10 out of 10. Sorry,
You
I
go
won't
play
apologize
catch
for
with
that
your
one. I won't apologize. Guardians 2, 10 out of 10. Best Marvel movie easily.
man. That's the one we should have been talking about. That movie is like so mid.
No, it's so good. We don't have time. I really do have to go, but
Okay,
we can do
yeah,
another video on that one.
yeah. Anyway, oh, actually, real quick, because I know you have to go.
Mhm.
I have a ranking of the Marvel movies.
Okay.
my channel. So go
We
watch
should-
that.
Okay. We should talk about Marvel movies sometime. I have opinions, as you can tell.
We can do, yeah, we can do that. But go watch my Marvel ranking video and let me know what you think when you have
Okay.
free time. Anyway,
Sounds good.
that's it, everyone. Let us know what you think of rankings in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.